Sorry about that, Lindsay. That's kind of too bad.
No worries. It looks like we are getting synced up for live.
I think we're going.
Excellent. She'll let me know when it's going through, and she'll make me host. Just wait maybe 1 second here. Okay, it looks like we are live. All right. Welcome, everyone. I am Lindsay. I'm the National Educator for evanhealy, and I am here today for our next episode of What's Your Truth? And I am with my dear friend and colleague, Robb Doser. Hey, Robb.
Hey, Lindsay.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Sorry, I'm juggling a few things here.
Right. Oh my gosh, it looks amazing. I love your setup.
Me too. Me too. It's a new setup to me, as you know. Like, it's only been this is my second run in this house, so I'm excited because it's just so much smarter setup. So yeah, it's good.
Excellent. So everyone, today we're actually going to talk all about distillation and hydrosols. We're going to talk a little bit about our favorite ways to use them. And Robb is actually a hydrosol distiller enthusiast. And so he's going to walk us through the steps needed to take plant matter and turn that into one of our incredible pure plant hydrosols. So Robb, I was wondering, would you be able to tell us a little bit about your journey that brought us to where we are today?
Sure. It's a long journey, but it doesn't need to be long in language. Well, I was working at a health food store in the Chicago area, and well, I had just left working at a health food store in Chicago, but I'd been working there for a number of years. I'd been through countless skincare trainings, and then I stumbled upon evanhealy. I was introduced to evanhealy as being the cleanest skincare line on the market. That was 17 years ago, and I think that we're still reportedly the cleanest skincare line. And I bought some product. I loved it. I got on the phone with them, and 17 years ago, the company must have been 21 years old, something like that. And so I called the company, and Evan was on the phone, and in a matter of a couple of minutes, she taught me more about the skin than I'd ever been taught before, even though I'd been through countless skincare trainings when I was working at the store level. And I was bold enough to keep calling. She was silly enough to keep answering. We didn't want to be in a professional relationship. We were just like having conversations, sharing perspectives, and so then, yeah, a couple of years later, we started working together. She hired me to be the Midwest broker, and I don't know how much longer after that we went through. She took me to a distillation workshop with Annie Harmon, and I just saw how she did it, which she does. I think a lot of this sort of experimental stuff that I'm doing, just at a way more sophisticated level. I'm not a professional. These are not the hydrosols that we're selling to evanhealy. But that's kind of what turned me on.
Oh,
it was great. I mean, it's great. Since then, we've been to workshops together. We've been to the distillation together several times.
Yes, and our distillation is such an incredible experience. It just transports you to a different planet, it seems like, when we're distilling, and I see a little bit of water coming off the still right now, Rob.
Yeah.
So would you be able to walk us through the distillation process, actually?
Yeah, I think so. You need to start with a still. This still is from Portugal. Evan and Annie Barker Harmon, who is the person that we first started buying these hydrosols from, have their beliefs that copper stills are better. So they buy their stills from Portuguese and made copper still, and made in the tradition that it's been made in for I think like 100 years. You need a stove and you need running water. So I'll just pick this up and you can help me make sure that I'm showing you properly what we're looking at. So there's the stove, the heating element. Here is just the water. This is 20 liters of water, 20 milliliters of water. Here's where we put plant material, and I'm using cucumbers today because I just moved into my house, and so I don't have a garden yet, but I can go and buy cucumbers. So in this column is where you put the fresh plant material to do a steam distillation. I could remove this column should I want to, and put the plant material in here and do a water distillation. You would do that for something more like conifers or a hardier plant material. But for most of the plant material that we're using, we use steam distillation. And we boil this water, and it pushes through the plant material. There's a separation here. It pushes through the plant material as a gas, and it collects up here in this column, and then starts to come down here. And I've got water flowing in, from the sink to the back of the condenser. And the water is just in here to keep it cooling. So ideally, I would add some ice to this right now, but I'm not near ice to keep it cool. But you can see the condensation coils in there. So this water that's coming out of the sink never comes into contact with the hydrosol. The water that you see leaking around here is not leaking hydrosol. It's the water that's cooling the condenser. So as soon as the gas hits cool water, it turns back into a liquid state, which then separates between oil and water. Can you see this, Lindsay?
Yes, that's a great view of the hydrosol.
Yeah, so this is hydrosol, and there might be a little bit of essential oil on it. I don't think that cucumbers have a lot of essential oil, but I could be wrong. But then I can release this and let the hydrosol drip down here into the second chamber, but stop it in time to keep the essential oils separated. So then you end up with an essential oil and a hydrosol. That's the quick definition. That's the quick explanation. Do you think that spells it out?
Yes, and it's just so incredible to look at these beautiful stills. They're hand pounded, alembic copper.
They're works of art for sure, or at least beautiful works of craft. One of the things you might notice too is that I have this, I know it to be rye flour. We know it to be rye flour, but this little seal around all the gaps, and you just buy some rye flour and mix it with some water and create a paste, and then use it to sort of seal around all these gaps. And then as the vessel starts to warm up, it dries out that rye flour paste, and it becomes a seal. So it's sealing in everything. So I know that this holds 20 milliliters of hydrosol. That's what I'm going for in the end. And I put 20 milliliters of water in here. So there should be no, when I see that this is filled, I know that there's no more water left in here, because there's nothing escaping. If I saw some escaping gas, some escaping vapor, I'd add a little bit more paste to it, so I keep it handy for that case.
Right.
That makes sense. And so I'll get about 20 milliliters, which is about 70 ounces of hydrosol. So a generous amount.
Oh, excellent. So I was wondering, could you adjust your camera a bit so that I can see your face a little better? Just a little bit. Turn it just a touch. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Excellent. Perfect. So yeah, that was a great explanation. And so for everyone, when we are distilling at our family farms in Washington State, you know, they're hand harvesting the fresh plant matter and packing it into the stills immediately, and then beginning the distillation process. So something that's really incredible is it takes about 8 pounds of fresh plant matter to make a gallon of hydrosol. And another thing that makes our hydrosol so special is the fact that we're using fresh plant matter. You have this plant cellular water. And Rob, do you want to, you know, explain what, like, something a little bit more about the plant cellular water and why that's so special?
Well, I think that I could probably do as good of a job as you on talking about it. I mean, it's this big conversation. You know, Evan herself goes down a rabbit hole talking about it. It's a big idea that, you know, water has life, and if you're using fresh plant material, not only are we pushing this, so this should be distilled filtered water, and you're pushing it through the plant material, and any water left in the plants itself, the water that's in the plants itself is the cellular water. So you're capturing
It looks
sorry,
like I lost you for a minute there.
I know, but I'm back.
You're back. Okay. Could you just reiterate what that last 30 seconds or so?
Yeah, so I was just explaining that in the plants there's water, and that's what we're trying to capture through this process. And that cellular water is going to be different based on the plant material, and is going to have a lot of the medicinal activity in it. So one of the interesting things about what we do in Northern Washington is using fresh plant material, whereas most hydrosols that are coming into the market are using dried plant material, because dried plant material is it's better to distill. If your goal is to get a good essential oil, excuse me, it's better to use, in most instances, it's better to use dried plant material, because that essential oil has concentrated. So we're flipping it on end, and attempting to get the cellular water. So I don't really, I just know it's a big idea. Like, water has spirit, and we're capturing it, whereas, you know, other distillation practices just doesn't attempt to capture that, for obvious reasons, for good reasons, because they want a good essential oil.
Right. And so we're getting this sort of like vibrant plant water that's like brimming with all this plant cellular water. Energetically, it's just got that imprint of these beautiful plants that we're utilizing. And then also the fact that we're using these beautiful copper stills, there's you know, an alchemy to that as well. And, you know, this ancient process of using the copper and transforming this plant matter is just so incredible. So
yeah. And one of the cool things that Annie's doing these days is doing a lot of studies, right? So one of the things that she's studied and published about was the distinction between the antimicrobial, the antibacterial opportunities in that a copper still imparts into the plant material. So like a copper distilled hydrosol is going to have a greater antimicrobial activity than something done in stainless steel. So, depending on what your goal is in using a hydrosol, I think that's a really cool attribute.
Amazing. So it's more
Annie, the one that started our. Absolutely. I think so.
Wow.
We could go down that rabbit hole of the skin being our outer immune system, right? And so we want to boost our immune system that has already got antimicrobial attributes weaved in with antimicrobial plants like lavender, or most hydrosols are going to have antimicrobial properties to them. But lavender comes to mind as a super strongly antibacterial, antifungal, anti-everything. So.
Right. Oh, so wonderful. So could you talk to us a little bit about the pH and the importance of the pH with hydrosol distillation and also on the skin?
Oh yeah, two very different conversations. I'm doing this in a pretty homemade sort of way. I'm not trying to sell this plant material or anything. So I could get away with using pH strips. I feel pretty confident that that when I take it through this process, the pH is going to be slightly acidic. That's kind of part of the alchemical mystery of this, is that you can start with alkaline water, and when it goes through this process, somehow it ends up, to me, as not a genius of any sort, it seems magical that it turns out slightly acidic. And so the beautiful thing about hydrosols on the skin is that your skin's sweet spot is always trying to attain a balance of slight acidity. That's the way that the skin acts as part of our immune system, is that just like in our gut, that acidity that our gut has, the acidity that our skin has, that it creates for itself, is so that it can host bacteria to stave off invading bacteria. So your skin's always going to try to maintain this acid mantle, which is a composition of sweat and oil. And we're using the hydrosols to sort of both mimic that sweat component of the skin, but also, because it's gifting your skin with a single organic ingredient, it's gifting the skin with the proper pH. So it no longer has to fight to find its proper pH. You throw off the pH of your skin by way of exfoliation, or just using, like, showering in cities' water is going to be showering in alkaline water. So you might get out of a long, steamy, hot shower and feel like your skin is really tight. It's because you've just steamed your skin with alkaline water. Your skin works to get back to that acidic state. We're putting it there by using a hydrosol on our face. So it's a beautiful, simple thing that can do so much for your skin in that way. So testing the pH is something that you should be doing throughout the process. I'm not going to bother right now, but I feel pretty confident that I've never done one of these where it doesn't show up right, but I'll test the final batch to make sure, I'll take notes about what the pH is. But Judd and Ian, the people that are distilling for us, go through that rigorous testing because they're getting paid to do that, I guess. So they're just way more diligent about it. And I think that Judd's maybe a Virgo, and so he likes that sort of, precision. Whereas I'm a really sloppy home distiller. And I like it that I like it that way for myself. I'm glad the company has better standards. I have to empty this a little bit.
Okay. So you've already filled up the one batch, or like the jar that you filled is?
No, I'm just filling the top portion, this portion.
Oh, okay, right.
So I'm just draining it into this larger portion. When this larger portion is filled, I know that I'm going to be done, but that's going to be several hours. This process should probably take, I'm thinking about 3 hours. This is the shortest amount of hydrosol that does that make sense?
Yeah, it cut out just a little bit, but you said it's a shorter distillation that you're doing right now. Is that correct?
In the past, I've filled this vessel, which is larger than 2,000 milliliters. Sorry, I think I've said a lot of different milliliters. It's 2,000 milliliters is what I'm trying to do. In the past, I've filled this, and so at a certain point, I just had to stop the process and empty this. So now I'm just trying to fill till this lower vessel is filled, and see how that goes. 70 ounces is plenty for me, even though I like to use it like you, I like to use my hydrosols super generously. Not only do I want to use it to correct the pH of the skin, but it's also a moment of tranquility or bliss, or just checking out. For me, can we do some hydrosols right now?
Yes.
For me, it means taking off my glasses. So I'm unplugging a little bit. That's an unplugging experience. So
It never gets old. I absolutely love
it's just
every application of HydroSoul.
What are you using right now?
I am using Hearts of Summer. So the lemon verbena, rose geranium, and lavender blend that we carry, for those of you folks that aren't familiar with it, it's like pure joy in a bottle. How about you, Rob?
I just use chamomile, which I think is a rare find these days. But I tend to be a little bit high wired anyway, and so it's really great for my nervous system. When I first stumbled into using evanhealy skincare, I defined myself as a blue person. I had the inflammatory skin that was everything about diet and how I was managing or not managing stress. And so I've always been drawn to the anti-inflammatories. So frankincense is also one of my favorites, but of course lavender is always a top one, but frankincense is also just a great anti-inflammatory. And this cucumber, I fully expect to be, this is the first time I've distilled cucumber, but I expect it to be calming and cooling, more specifically. Just like, I before we got on the call, I was using these on my eyes. Hydrosols, because they're water, because they're simply H2O, you can spray them on your eyes, or I feel comfortable spraying them on my eyes anyway. So I feel like I'm going to use them in the same way that I would use cucumbers, just to reduce inflammation. As I get older, I feel like I'm gathering some bags under my eyes. As I get older, or as we make our way through COVID, one or the other. So, yeah.
When we were preparing for this call, you mentioned a cute story of Evan putting the cucumbers on your eyes in a misting experience. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I don't actually remember the experience. It was just kind of cute because she just sent me a text a couple of days ago with this picture of me, like dressed up with like a tie on, with cucumbers on my eyes, and I was like, "Where is this from? When is it from?" Because Evan and I have now been working together for 15 years. I didn't remember the experience, but it was just funny because it wasn't until just yesterday or the day before that we decided that we're going to actually distill cucumbers. So it was just kind of
It was serendipitous.
sent that. Yeah, it's always just so exciting whenever Evan's doing anything to your face, right? like the experience of Evan touching your face is like a godly experience in my mind. So I'm a pretty big enthusiast. So she's taught me so much, I mean, we've both worked for her for a long time. I mean, because of our past relationship together, because you used to work at one of the stores that I sold product into, Long Live the Wedge. You heard me sharing my enthusiasm, having just like spent time with Evan, coming back into the stores and just sharing the wisdom. I mean, she just taught me so much about a subject matter that I didn't think I was interested in, because my experience at the store level was always that people were just really interested in having subjective conversations about skincare, about what they liked or didn't like, what smelled good to them or not smelled good to them, which is totally fair. But as an herbal, I was studying Western herbalism and Chinese medicine space. And I just wanted to talk about healing people. Well, a DSHA compliant form of healing people at the store level. I was trying to become an acupuncturist, and Evan's language allowed me to have this whole new avenue of healing people through skincare, really, really extraordinarily simple skincare, where hydrosols play such a key role. So, I love every time I get to engage with her. So.
I know. So, I had so much inflammation in my skin when I started using evanhealy. So it's been almost about 15 years or so since I started using evanhealy. And, Rob and I knew each other at the store level. I worked at the Wedge Co-op. It was at the time the busiest, most profitable co-op per area in the country. So it was, so busy and so fun. And it was such a joy when Rob would come in. And I had the opportunity when I placed an order, I would call it in back then, and sometimes Evan would answer or David, and like I would get to talk to them. And I just have these fond memories when when she came around to do store trainings with you, Rob, and we I like hand her the products. I was just in so much awe because I had such troubled skin, and it was the first thing that I tried, and I was already working in the natural products industry. I'd already tried everything, and the moment I put the hydrosol and oil and water, the moment I did the oil and water ritual, I had instant relief from some of the irritation I was dealing with, and then I had cumulative improvement in my skin. But my skin was, I was diagnosed with rosacea, so I had red burning skin, and it just, was so inflamed.
Wow.
And that instant oil and water application, I was like, I felt like the soothing effect on my skin. And it was the Rosehip Treatment Serum Blue with the Lavender Hydrosol. And in all these years, I've never gone one day without that combination. Although I've used all the different hydrosols, I still always gravitate towards that rosehip treatment serum blue in the calming ritual line. And I really appreciate how much I learned from Evan as well, especially, those days when she was traveling around with you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did too. I mean, it was just, yeah. It was so exciting. It's hard to imagine. I don't remember you ever having troubled skin. I don't know if that cleared up before the time that we met, but it's kind of remarkable to think. But I do, after working for the company for so long, I have had just incredible experiences. I mean, and it's just maybe part of my most favorite part of the job is to watch people. We carry so much emotion around what happens here, how we're presenting to the world, and doing staff trainings and teaching them this simple oil and water system that involves 5 raw ingredients. Showing somebody that system and then coming back and checking in on the store a couple weeks later, I've seen radical transformations in skin that kind of stopped me in my tracks. My skin was never horrible, and I feel like, as a guy, like I've been able to sort of bow out of some of that pressure to be, whatever, to be. I don't have the same beauty standards put on me as women might. I do it because I want to take care of my skin, because it seems silly to ignore this only visible organ system and say that you're healthy. It's just part of my health routine. I wouldn't go a day without using my hydrosols and oils in the same way that I wouldn't go a day without, taking some essential fatty acids and drinking some water. Although I've probably gone through some days that I haven't drank some water. But I mean, it's just part of skin. It's part of just an overall health regimen. And I like that it can meet people where they're at.
Oh, so true. Well, since we're talking about the importance of the oil and water ritual, would you be able to show us, do a demonstration of this? I'm going to focus
Sure.
for now.
Yeah. I just want to be transparent and say that that I'm not doing a very good job of keeping this water cold. If I were trying to maintain it more consciously, I would be icing this down. You should never see steam rising from this. That's not okay. So if you're doing this at home, if you're going to try this at home, like, don't do that. This is just for teaching purposes. So you want me to do this? So I'm a longtime user of the pomegranate repair serum. It's just, I mean, what can you say about the pomegranate repair serum? It's just so much antioxidants, so much healing. It's probably the single most therapeutic serum that we have. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerhouse of antioxidants, and it's got a beautiful texture as well. This like thick, beautiful texture.
Yeah, and it doesn't have fragrance to it too, so it's good for sensitive skin in that way. So yeah, I mean, it's just so much richer than a rosehip seed oil, which is part of its beauty, especially during fall or winter weather here in Minnesota, which is where I'm at. Moving to a richer, thicker oil just makes me feel a little bit more protected in my skin. So I'm going to take, a pump or two of the serum, and then add, 8 to 10 pumps of this, which is the recommendation. But it's also recommended to use the hydrosol on its own throughout the day for any number of reasons. And then I'm gonna mix the two of them together. In essence, I'm emulsifying them into a new product without having to use emulsifiers or stabilizers. And then just pressing it into my skin. I have a lot of exposed skin, so I go through a lot of this. But Evan also always used to talk about the importance of, touching your skin. It's just an opportunity to give yourself a little, I don't know, just to calm the nervous system, right? We have so many nerves in our face. I mean, we've got so many organs in our face. So we've got our eyes, our mouth, our nose. We've just got a lot of nerve endings that help us interpret the world. There's a lot of nerves there. So using calming things on your nervous system, on this external nervous system, I think is key. And then pressing it into our skin, just kind of it's as comforting as, like my mother's hand on my cheek or something when I'm sick, So it's just that simple. If you just do this every day, it's just giving your skin a chance to find balance, perhaps for the first and only time of the day,
So beautiful. Thank you, Rob, for going through that for us. And I, just to maybe reiterate, we utilize quite a bit of Hydrosol in our application. Could you tell us again, just to go over that one more time, like how much do you really use when you're applying it? And I know we use a lot in our facials, but also in home application and treatment. You said you use how many pumps of Hydrosol?
Yeah, I mean, every time, I use about 8 to 10 pumps of Hydrosol to 1 to 2 pumps of oil serums.
Okay.
And I do that. I do that every time I wash my face, or twice a day. Sorry, am I freezing up for you?
You were a couple times, but it's okay now. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just saying, I use 8 to 10 pumps of Hydrosol to 1 or 2 pumps of oil serum, and push it into my skin, at least every time I wash my face, every time I bathe. And then throughout the day, like we were doing before, like saturating my skin with 20 pumps of Hydrosol. I don't count. It's just whatever feels good. And for me, gifting myself that few moments of Hydrosol bliss, it's just become an important part of my day, especially because I spend so much time in front of the computer now during COVID. It's just a good way to break away, and just recharge your nervous system, your immune system, your skin. It's all in one.
Right. I know Evan would mention that we suffer from nature deficit disorder, and that the Hydrosols can really bring us in touch with nature and closer to those elements, which I love that. So
yeah, right. It actually reminds me of an important point for home distillers, is that when you're doing this, you should make sure that you're doing it in a well ventilated space, because it can be intoxicating. When we do it in Eastern Washington, of course, we're doing it in these big open spaces with much larger stills. But even this size, like if you do it in an enclosed space, it could be it could be dangerous. I worry about my dog more than anybody, but sensitive people, it could be a lot for. Yeah.
So you're picking up a lot of aroma off the still right now.
Oh yeah. It smells like cucumbers throughout the house, which is pleasant. I'll be curious because I'm letting too much heat enter this system, I'll be curious to see if that changes the pH or not. But you can see like steam coming off. That's not bueno.
So oh, sorry. We forgot to talk about the angel mist. Could you tell us what the angel mist is and when that happens?
Yeah, and I apologize because I was trying to time it just so we could capture that angel mist. But the angel mist is, is that something? Is that a term that Evan coined? I'm not even sure. But I think that I mentioned that this is probably going to be a 3-hour long process. Obviously, we're not going to hold you up for 3 hours. But when the process first begins, you're just gently boiling the water and massaging it through the still or through the column, and then you're waiting for 15-20 minutes before before out of this piece you just a bit of vapor escapes right before you start seeing liquid, and that vapor shows up like this steam shows up, but it's actually a vapor, and it's the sign that your distillation is about to begin. It's beautiful, and it's when you're doing a distillation, usually up north where we're doing it, it's a 3 to 5 hour long process, and over the course of those hours, like the first thing that comes out is the top note, and a lot of people do something like rosemary on their stove with an overturned lid as a home hydrosol sort of process. You're able to get the top notes, those higher fragrances out of it. But as you go through a longer process, and something you can't do on the stove, I don't believe, you get the mid notes and the base notes. So that first angel's breath is all like top note, and it's and because of that, it becomes a little bit ethereal. Do you know what I mean by top, mid, base?
Yes, absolutely. When the angel mist comes off the stills, the hairs on my arm all turn up, and it's like almost tingles everywhere. Like it is truly etheric, and it feels like that's that moment when I feel like I'm transported to another place. And those high notes, they're like, it's fleeting as well. It's like this moment when that first blush of aroma comes off the still.
Well, especially when we're up there and we've been, sort of toiling in this sort of, this microclimate that we grow in up there is this Mediterranean climate. So it's often really hot when we're up there, and dry. So we've been working in the fields for a few hours, and then, we get the stills ready, and we're sort of talking about that. And so, we've been working on preparing this distillation at that point for already a few hours before that angel mist shows up. So it's this really anticipatory experience of like, you're going to miss it if you walk away for a second. So it's exciting on a lot of levels, I think. So yeah, there's so much romance to this process, I think.
True. It is very romantic, and the farms are incredibly beautiful. From the farms to the stills to our farmers that are distilling. It's just a beautiful and incredible process. I feel so grateful that I've had the opportunity to participate in it with you all these times, and with our amazing team. The Hydrosols are pure joy, and like I said, it never gets old. Applications are always a joy as well, and I think it brings me back like to what that nature, you're brought back to another place every time you're applying these to your skin. And not only that, they're full of antioxidants and phytonutrients and this perfect pH. So amazingly healthy for our skin. You were cutting out a bit. It looks like we're coming up on about 45 minutes here. Would you, is there anything else that you'd like to mention in closing?
Is there anything else? I mean, you've got me thinking about those farmers and just like what cool people they are and what cool opportunities that as a company we've provided them. I mean, it's not like it's just a cool opportunity that Annie provided them to train them how to do this, and we're just part of that equation.
Looks like you're frozen a little bit right now. Let's see if
Uh-oh. Sorry, I lost you again.
That's okay.
Okay. Are you with me still?
Yes, I see you there. Okay.
I was thinking how many farms there are now. Do you know?
11, 9 to 11, somewhere in there, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. And yeah, it's been a process for them too, right? Like it's been a journey for them to go from maybe conventional farming to becoming organic farmers and to do this distillation. They thought Annie was a little bit nutso, as I understand it, for doing this thing that she was doing, and now she brought them all into it, and we've helped revitalize their economic opportunities there. So that's really a cool part of this Hydrosol story.
So true. Like we're able to support certified organic small family farms with our skincare applications and Hydrosol applications. It's a beautiful thing. And so rare.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And we did it. I mean, I remember when we were doing things differently, and then we started a relationship with Annie, and we offered it up to consumers, and consumers said, "Oh, this is better." Like we thought it was better, but consumers said, "Oh yeah, this stuff that you're doing on in copper, long term versus short. When you're distilling for essential oils, not only are you more apt," and I shouldn't speak about essential oils so much because I don't know, I've never distilled for essential oils, but you're using stainless, and you're usually using high heat because the essential oils distill out really easily in 45 minutes and 50 minutes. So usually that process does provide a hydrosol, but it's usually just that high note, and there's no cellular water.
Right.
And it's in stainless. So, I mean, I'm not trying to badmouth it. I think the beauty is that it all has the same pH. It's going to be good for the skin in that capacity. But if you need medicine on the skin, if you need lavender to calm and cool your skin, there's just going to be more. We're capturing more chemical constituents, which means we're capturing more medicine in the process that we use. So it's not necessarily hearsay. It's just that's just how it works, So, which I think is beautiful.
Right. Certain components of the distillation aren't even released, or certain chemical constituents aren't even released until 3 hours in. And so, you're getting this full spectrum hydrosol. And then also the beauty of using the copper, you get this brighter hydrosol, since all the naturally occurring sulfurs and yeast that you find in all plant matter, they actually adhere to the walls of the copper still. Yet in stainless steel distillation, they stay within the hydrosol. So, they call it a still note. So it's almost like a little skunky smell that, they often hold on to let that dissipate. It's not often as fresh at that point either. So there's a lot of layers to this long, slow artisanal process in copper that we're utilizing. And so it really is truly fantastic and therapeutic. I know that's, a main concern of Evan and Judd, is they want the most therapeutic hydrosol possible. And so kind of beautiful to think about all the little layers that go into this seemingly simple one ingredient product.
Yeah, it is. The beautiful thing is that I think it's really simple for the consumer, for the user of the products. It's hard to see all the details that go into it. All the decisions that have been made, because you can manipulate the hydrosol, the quality of the hydrosol too, just by manipulating what hour of day you want to do the harvesting at. So we've experienced that up at Judd and Ann's too. And we get to have a say in that. Evan has always had a say in that, in like, if we harvest at a different time, can we get a fragrance? Can we get can we remove some sharpness? Can we, any number of decisions that want to be played out in that conversation, we can do, because it's a craft, and they're always honing their craft. Sadly, I'm probably not going to hone my craft too much. It's always going to be a little bit sloppy like this, but it's entertaining for me. And I won't use it if the pH is not where I need it to be. I have plenty of evanhealy hydrosols to keep me happy. So, but a couple weeks ago, I distilled some Catmint Hydrosol, and that turned out really lovely. I went back to my old place and harvested some Catmint, and that turned out lovely. So I'll have to send you some.
Please do, and I'd love to try this cucumber hydrosol if it turns out. So curious.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is, I've only got it about halfway filled. At this point, I could dump this and put an ice bath on this and maintain it after we jump off the call, and get another, 30 ounces of something that is what I want it to be, So it doesn't have to be a waste, So.
So wonderful. So I'm thinking we're coming up on the hour. In closing, is there anything that you wanted to mention that we didn't talk about? Otherwise, I think we've done a pretty thorough discussion on hydrosols today.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could offer, just because you were talking about, because we were talking about copper versus stainless. Once I'm through here, there'll be a vitamin C rinse. The cleanse, because the copper holds on to the sulfur. You need to clean it. It's a little bit more challenging to clean out than stainless. The beauty of using stainless is that it's easy. So I have to do a copper rinse after this, just so we have a full experience. Before we got started, I use just some Everclear in water to sterilize every piece that's going to interact with the hydrosol itself. Let it dry out, and then get it going. And then afterwards, I'll have to do a vitamin C rinse, which I don't think you probably would have to do with stainless. But it's just part of the process. So I'll do that tomorrow, I'm sure. So.
Oh, well, thank you
Yeah.
for.
Well, thanks for letting me indulge, you know. It's an indulgence to do this.
Thank
It's fun
you
to
for
do it with you.
teaching us. It's so fun. It's so fun to be here with you. I feel like, I'm there distilling with you. And we've done it before, at in Washington at Judd and Ann's farm and at Annie Harmon's farm. We've had the opportunity to do this together and pack the stills.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Anytime you want to come and do some stuff, bring your plant material. I've got this still.
Oh, wonderful.
So thanks for letting me do this with you.
Oh.
Sorry about the technical difficulties. I'm not sure. I thought we worked those out in advance, but I guess not.
That was pretty good. This such is life. These things happen, but it's been amazing. Thank you so much, Rob, for showing us how this is done. I mean, a picture says 1,000 words, and it's so true. What you just showed us and walked us through these steps makes it tangible. It makes it, it makes it real in so many different ways. And I appreciate you so much. And everybody watching, thank you for joining us for What's Your Truth? And we're on every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So if you want to join us, we're different times. We're on IG Live, or we're on our Facebook Truth Seekers Sanctuary page, which we would love for you to join, as well as YouTube Live. So keep up with us on social media to find out where we're meeting up every Thursday. We've got a lot of special things coming for you. And so happy that we could have Rob with you today. And with that, have a beautiful rest of your day. Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks.
Goodbye, everyone.